Today, we'll talk about leadership development and training, specifically how organizations can identify and develop future leaders through training. This is the 30, folks. Well, hello there, gang. Welcome to the 30 once again. This is where we provide relevant information for you, our viewers and our listeners. I want to thank you for being here on this day. Do me a huge favor. Go ahead and like and share this broadcast. This is episode 171. The goal is basically to help you enhance your personal, professional, and spiritual lives. Thank you. Thank you again for taking time of your busy schedules to join me here. If you would like to join the program, drop me a note. I just want to see who's out there. Say hello. Drop me a note saying hi. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat. We want to hear from you to hear how things are going. The last week episode, I'm telling you, last week was fantastic. My special guest was on, and he did a great job. Jason Hodge did a fantastic job, and he gave us some excellent information. He also dropped some great nuggets. If you happen to miss last week's episode 170, you can catch that on our YouTube channel. Of course, the 30 is a production of the Jackman Group LLC. So you can go ahead to YouTube and check it out under at the Jackman Group LLC. That's on YouTube, at the Jackman Group LLC. And that's where all of our episodes are being housed. So thank you for that. This is episode 21. Not 21. 171. 21 was, when was that? 2020 when we did that? We are 171 in over 3 years. And today we're going to be talking about how organizations can identify and develop future leaders. So whether you are a leader, whether you have a team, you lead an organization, or you lead teams, or you're looking to do that in the future, this episode and upcoming episodes are the things that you need to really focus on. If you are familiar with myself or the 30, if you watch the shows over time, you know how passionate I am about leaders and leadership, making sure that they're successful. You know what we talk about leaders and leadership a lot on this show. We talk about coaching. We talk about the importance of training. You also know that I'm part of the Jackman Group, and we focus primarily on leadership development, team enhancement, coaching, sales training, and organizational development. So those are the things that we focus on. Those are primary areas of focus. So today we'll talk about how organizations can identify and develop future leaders through training. It's extremely important for any organization, if you're serious about long-term success, it's not only important for you to train and develop your current leaders, but it's also pretty much crucial for you to start identifying and developing future leaders within your organization. I see this way too often where organizations talk about long-term success, talk about success within the organization. That's sometimes it's part of their DNA, sometimes it's part of their culture, sometimes it's part of their discussions. So they talk about these things, right? They also talk about developing people, which I give you two thumbs up when it comes to developing teams and developing people. But when it comes to leaders, when it comes to training and developing leaders, that's what some organizations, that's where some of them fall short. Because the conversation is about training and developing your team, your talent. But the conversation stops when we say, where are you with training and developing your current leaders? So I see this quite often, and it kind of amuses me, but it's also very sad. Because if you're going to develop your team members and refuse to invest in development of your leaders, that says a lot about the organization. Some understand it and get it, and they have a culture of learning and development for not only the individuals that make up the organization, but the leaders as a whole. So I really commend those organizations. I applaud those organizations that focus and have a culture of overall training, development, and coaching and moving leaders forward. See, what happens is that we all know that effective leadership development and training programs, we all know this, and studies have shown this. But the organizations that focus primarily on development, training, and development, and not just focus on it, not just have a box check, right? Check, but actually put things in place to say that this is part of who we are. This is part of our DNA. This is part of our culture. That we're going to develop, train, and develop and coach our individuals, but also coach our leaders and train our leaders. The effective leadership development and training, when you start to look at that and implement training programs, these things can help your organization nurture your current talent, your current leaders. It also helps you as an organization, build a strong leadership bench. So you may say, Patrick, what is a bench? I call it a bench, others may call it a pipeline. To ensure that there's a smooth transition of leadership, as current leaders retire or they've moved on, meaning they've left the organization one way or the other, either on their own or maybe from the organizational standpoint where they was not a fit. But one of the absolute worst things that can happen to any organization, small or large, profit or non-for-profit, one of the absolutely worst things is to have leaders leave and you don't have a pipeline or bench to fill their spots. That's the absolute worst thing that can happen to any organization. And folks, I've seen it. I've seen it quite often in my 25 years plus of training and developing in the learning and development field. And I've also seen it working in the non-learning and development field. So I've seen it as an employee in sales. I've also seen it in training, and I've also seen it uh, as a leader and also developing, training, and developing leaders. So, what I'm going to do today in the next couple of weeks, we're going to take some time and I'm going to talk about some of the steps that organizations can take to identify and develop future leaders through training. You've heard me said time and time again, there's a difference between training and coaching. If there's a skill deficit, this is where training comes in. That's aptitude. If it's an attitude deficit or lack of desire, that's where coaching comes in, right? Or leaders needed to have some idea, someone that can help them to identify what are some of their gaps, not necessarily skill gaps, but some of their blind spots. That's where coaching comes in. So we're going to focus primarily on training for leaders, making sure that organizations understand the importance of taking the time to identify and develop future leaders. My assumption is that you are currently doing that with your current leaders, and that's part of your culture. But let's take a step further. Have you started the process of identifying and then next step developing your future leaders? Have you put them through some form of development, a career pathing, a development path, where you know that these leaders, if called upon, not only have the skill set, but have the competencies to become an effective leader? See, effective leadership development and training programs, as I said before, can help organizations nurture talent, build a stronger pipeline, and create a smooth transition when things does not work out. Someone leaves or someone is fired. So here are a couple of things, and I'm going to start with this one because this is key here. As an organization, or a leader, you need to identify what is the leadership competencies that you're looking for. What are you looking for in an effective leader? What does that look like? What are some of the competencies? Have you taken the time to do that? So if you have not within your organization, you need to start by defining what are the leadership competencies and skills that are important for your organization's success. I'll give you some ideas of what you could look at. So some of these could include strategic thinking. Are these leaders strategic in their thinking? Where's their communication? Are they effective in communication, written, spoken? Where are they with decision making? Is it important for your organization and your leaders to be adaptable when change takes place? Can they pivot quickly? Or do they always have to process information? And also, you want to look at emotional intelligence. Where are they, right? Is that part of your DNA? So these are things that you really want to look at. These are just a few of them. So number one, start to identify the leadership competencies and skills that are critical for your organizational success. And if this is something that you have not started yet, you need to really get on the ball with this, because you don't want to be caught in a bind where some of your critical leaders, your key leaders, have left the organization. Now you are being reactive as opposed to being proactive. So the key here is really understanding, work backwards. What are your desired outcomes? What do you hope to accomplish, right? What does that look like? What do you currently have? What's taking place now? And what are some of the gaps as it relates to these competencies and skills? Have you done these things? Have you taken the time to really sit down and meet and identify and put it on paper? Number two, when we talk about steps organizations can take to identify and develop future leaders through training. Of course, we got to have this as number two. Once you've identified the competencies and skills that you want to have for your organizational success, number two is, where are you with leadership training programs? Do you see this as an important part of the organization? Or do you take it for granted that, hey, Bob should know what he's doing, Mary should know what she's doing? They were successful in the area before they become a leader, so no doubt they'll be successful. Folks, I'm telling you, I see this quite often. Because someone is good at what they do, let's say sales, right? Because someone is the number one salesperson, folks, that does not mean that they're going to be an effective leader. Because they're good at their job, and I see organizations do this all the time, is that they promote the person into a position of leadership and fail to train and invest in the person's development of leadership. So, where are you as we're talking about steps organizations can take to identify and develop future leaders through training? Do you have a leadership program? Have you discussed it as a leadership team? And we're talking about developing and investing in leadership programs. So this has to be a conversation. You also need to identify what are the gaps within your leadership. What are the skill gaps? Is it that there's a lack of effective communication? Is it that your leaders don't know how to resolve conflict effectively? Is it that they don't know how to lead a team? They don't know how to lead a team meeting? Is it that your leaders don't understand strategic planning? Is it a gap in their decision-making process? Have you sat down and really identified what are the gaps that exist in your leaders? And once you've done that, now you have to take the next step or you can either do it or you can bring someone in to do that for you. Of course, you can bring the Jackman Group in, right? Because that's what we do. But whether you have an in-house training team or if you're looking to outsource this is investing in leadership training and development is critical to the overall success of your organization. Some organizations say, well, yeah, we've done it like this for 20 years. We can continue not developing in our leaders. Folks, I'm here to tell you things have changed. Sometimes I tell leaders, yeah, you've done it for 20 years. Where are you now? And some organizations have plateaued out. Some organizations are finding that they can't keep up. Some organizations are finding out that their competition are eating their lunch, meaning they've lost market share. And most importantly, some of their key leaders have gone to their competitors because of the lack of vision within the organization from the leaders, from the top leaders. So I would say number 2 is really developing, whether you have an internal training team or investing in an outsourced training and development organization like us, the Jackman Group. We'd be happy to help you. Come in to help you do the assessment and help you with training as well as coaching your leaders. The last one that I'm going to talk about today, and we'll continue this conversation on next week. Let me see what folks are saying here. Let me see. Let me bring some others up, talk about it. Alfreda says a leader needs to be confident, in my humble opinion. Thanks, Alfreda. Janice, thank you for joining. Your humility coupled with the competencies to help people grow beyond you. Fantastic. That's great. Let me see what others are saying. Professional development training is so important in order for your company to stay afloat. Amen to that. And of course, Janice, thank you so much for being a part of us, bringing us in to the organizations and being one of our partners. Janice says the Jackman Group offers great development that produces results. Thank you. Greatly appreciate your confidence in us and our continued partnership. So let me end with this. And I was talking about this yesterday in our training with our supervisors and managers at the City of Rochester. We're talking about this important piece, which is succession planning. This is number 3. And we've seen organizations do this well, and organizations are still behind the 8 ball, having a lack of succession planning. So, number 1, when we talk about succession planning, it is not a one-time event. Succession planning is a process, right? So it is carefully designed, developed, and it's a process where you'll have to bring it into the organization, and it's continuous. So it's not a one-time event. But when we talk about succession planning as number 3 and how steps organizations can take to identify and develop future leaders through training, we're talking about training the leaders around the area of succession planning. As an organization, you need to look at succession planning as another critical step that can either help you or hurt you. It can help you if you have a process that's already in place or you're thinking about it. It can definitely hurt you if you don't have a process in place and you're not thinking about it. Goes back to if someone leaves, right? If some of your leaders leave and you look down the bench, and this is a sports analogy, and you look down the bench and you see the bench empty, so there's no one there that you can call up to say, hey, next person up. So if you look down the bench of your pipeline and you have empty space, then what are you going to do? Chances are your action is going to be out of desperation, and that's where mistakes happen. Because you're so desperate in getting someone in, now you're going to hire someone out of desperation, and more likely than not, that is not going to be the right person. So as opposed to being reactive, I implore you folks to be proactive in establishing a formal succession planning process. Part of that is identifying potential future leaders. That's number one. Number two is having these leaders, taking these potential leaders and putting them through training and development so that when the time comes, you know that this person or persons are equipped, trained, and developed, and they can step into the role at any given time. So, how do we do that in terms of setting up this succession plan? I said identifying training development. You can also do this through reviewing of performance evals to find out where your people are. I hope that in your organization that you conduct performance evaluations. I hope so. The next thing that you can do is to encourage your managers and leaders to continuously have one-on-one conversations, meetings with their teams. And these are some of the things that you can encourage them to talk about. What is the person's motivators? What are their demotivators? What are their short-term and long-term goals? Where do they see themselves in the next 12 months? Where do they see themselves in the next 2 to 5 years? What are their career aspirations? Because you're looking to find the person or persons that can be your potential bench, your potential leader, so that if something happens, you know you have built that pipeline or bench. And all you have to do now is to plug them in. But without having a formal succession planning process, you're behind the 8 ball. So these are just a couple of things that I really want to talk with you about today and get you thinking. Get you thinking about what can I do as a leader within the organization, as a key leader. Or maybe it's your business. Maybe you own the business. Or maybe you're the CEO or COO of the organization. Maybe you're the HR person or the chief people officer. So these are things that you really need to think about when we talk about success, when we talk about preparing your organization, having your organization identify and develop future leaders with the help of training. So I want to thank you for taking the time for being here. My time's up. I look forward to continuing this conversation next week. And if you are looking for help, if you say, well, I don't have these things now, but I see the importance of having them. I see the importance of being proactive as opposed to being reactive. I encourage you to contact us at the Jackman Group LLC. Drop us a line, drop us an email. info@jackmangroupllc.com. I said again, info@jackmangroupllc.com. And says, hey, I want to learn more, like to have a conversation with you, and I'll be happy to have that conversation with you because that's what we do. We want to make sure that we take leaders and teams from where they are to where they should be. It's not only our passion, but it's our purpose. It's my purpose in life to develop people, to take them from where they are to where they should be. And I would love to partner with you and your organization to help you with these things because I fully believe that every organization, every team, as opposed to being reactive to when things happen, and they will happen, right? Things will happen. You will have leaders leave. You may have a leader, what I call permanently separated from payroll, meaning fired. These things will happen. But as opposed to being reactive and waiting for things to happen, folks, be proactive. Be proactive. Do a full diagnosis of your organization, a full assessment. And if you need help, If you need help, give us a call. Info at Jackman Group LLC. That's our email. Or you can call our business number, 585-861-6828. I'll say that again, 585-861-6828. So either call or send us an email, and we'll be happy to come in and partner with you and work with you to take your organization from where you are to where you desire to be. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you next week. May God continue to bless you and your family. Be safe out there. Peace.